Okay, last session, what we have seen um, from the JSP servlet programming, we have seen the different ways of testing the HTTP GET and POST methods. Also, we have seen different tools from command line interface to the GUI. From command line interface, we have used HTTP, and from within VS Code, we had seen an extension called REST client. And also curl CURL, we have seen three different command line interface utilities we have tested. We have used to make a HTTP GET and POST request. I think we did a post as well. Yeah. Similarly, we have also seen a graphical user interface tools like Postman, which is a separate utility on its own, has got a different widget sections within the workspace, where on the left-hand side, you get a list of requests. On the right-hand side, you pass the actual parameters and make a request. Similar to Postman, lookalike, what we have seen in additional another extension inside the VS Code was Thunder client. So using which as well we were able to make a HTTP GET or POST request. But we faced one problem wherein the UTF-8 response was not automatically set. By default, it was actually taking, considering the ISO 88591, that's a default Latin encoding. Of course, though immediately I was able to resolve it, but I couldn't make the recording because of other commitments, right? But we will just take a look at this first and then close it, then move on to the next video. So that I want to, this fix to be a logical continuation of the problem where we were stuck in the previous video. So let me share my screen and we'll take a look at the problem, and then we will go ahead and look at the fix, right? So this is what we have. So let me, I think the server is running. Let me run the server. All right. Let's go here. Yeah, this is where it is. Let me, so December 16th, today, 8:10% time. So this is what we are looking at it, HTTP servlet GET method. I make a GET request hit. So this content in UTF, though it was actually non-English, a Tamil character, which was not actually getting served as what we expected. So I think the same thing we have it here as well. Okay. We tried making some other settings, it didn't work. That's fine. Where are the utilities we had? We did HTTP, same URL, right? Yeah, here we get only the content in question marks. So, but in actual reality, we have some Tamil content. That's a way to slogan or slanting, chanting, slogan or a chanting, but it doesn't really appear. So if I put it here, it still doesn't come. That was the problem. So the very simple solution to that is, we were trying to adjust the encoding. We did a couple of other options as well. Number one, we tried to set it here as an UTF-8 exclusively, or here this as well we have tried. Response.set content type text HTML. Immediately with a semicolon, we tried char set UTF-8 as well. This is the same effect as that of setting this exclusively. But nothing really worked. If you look at it, default content type is by default null. Null means, as always, if you look at it, default, if there is no encoding set, Tomcat actually takes that as ISO 88591 as a default one. That's what in the Confluence page of Tomcat we have seen. Let me check. Where do I have JSP Servlets? The Tomcat Confluence page. Where do I have? Let's look at the history. Yeah, this page, if you look at it. So default encoding for get, character set for HTTP query strings, that's the technical term for get parameters, can be found in this. Yeah, here itself we see. So if a character encoding is not specified, the servlet specification requires that an encoding of ISO 88591 is used. So it isn't, see Apache Tomcat Confluence wiki page. So this is where the rule applies when there is no encoding set by default. So obviously, there are other ways to take a look how we can set a default encoding other than ISO 88555, other than null. We can take a look. That's a different story for another day. But because there is nothing set, it is null. It obviously takes ISO 88591 as a default one. And we tried explicitly setting this and it didn't take an effect. The reason being, the settings would be applied before we actually obtain a response. When you say response.getWriter, one that is obtained, that means by the moment the writer was obtained, what was encoding set, that would be applicable. That would not be overridden with any settings. So that was actual hack. So what we can do, we cut this, right, and then paste it before. So simple solution. We are not obtaining this. Well, actually, what are we doing logically speaking? We obtain the response writer object here in the beginning. Maybe we are thinking that we plan to write something immediately, but we aren't. We are actually doing some manipulation on the response object. And finally, here is where we are writing out.write. The out object was never used until this line. So just before we are actually writing, we obtain the response, right? Until then, whatever settings that you do, it would be really effective. That's the only fix, that only change in the content that we do, with which immediately to take an effect. Let's take a look. So let's clean the project, right? Let's refresh it. Also clean it, right? Stop the server. As always, I'll do that. Refresh, build a project. I'll do run on server. Or you can also do here in the servers, clean Tomcat work directory. And then you click run as server, choose the server. Tomcat 9, choose only configured. Now it would by default open my HTML servlet page. Here we have not done anything, just to demonstrate as HTML, we are doing this. We can fix this a bit later. So I'll come back here, same JSP Servlet HTML page, go to the console, right? I hit, now you see, bingo, here you have the content display. So even though here the default content type is appeared as null, this is our system out println, but we did apply some settings. So if you look at it, default encoding is UTF-8. Why? Before we obtain the response, we did the default encoding what we have got. Here itself we set this char set UTF-8. That's the reason encoding is applied as UTF-8. Assuming I don't set this, let's assume I just only set this response. Maybe I comment this out. Now what would happen? I'm only setting HTML type. I close this, clean this. Once again, I do the same set. Sorry. Open project, refresh, build a project. Obviously, we'll open it. World servlet. Yeah, servlet ported HTML. That's a form we had. I think that's what we had it precisely. Right. So I've commented, I'm not setting in encoding. First, I just sent only the MIME type. In encoding, I set it later. Just wanted to bifurcate whether it's really taking an effect. So I come here, show the server, yes, and finish. All right. It would open up a JSP page as always. I go. So no output in the console now. It is what it is. I clean the console. Still, I get the output. Yes, 8:12 the time. Sorry, 8:18 in the morning, 6 16th December. You see here, the default encoding is ISO 88591. This is precise, perfect, right? By default, we have not obtained any response, and we are trying to ascertain what is the default content type. It was setting as null. It was set as null. Then we are setting the content type modified as text.html, text/html. That's a MIME type, multi-purpose internet email mail extension. Modified content type, we set this text.html. What is the default encoding from the response object? What it was supplied by the servlet container to this servlet do get method, the response object. By default, what we received is ISO 88591. Then exclusively we are setting the response.set character encoding as UTF-8. That is why I'm immediately setting once again as a system out println as a troubleshooting mechanism, recent encoding or modified encoding, response.get character encoding. From the same response object, I am trying to obtain what is the actual encoding. Now you have it with you. That is UTF-8. In that case, whatever the content I am setting, it is actually applied and rendered appropriately because this goes well with the UTF-8. Only then I am obtaining a writer. That means at this time, my response object being given ready for printing the contents is with the settings whatever I have applied. Instead, had I obtained the response or the writer object from the response earlier, at that moment, whatever the settings was available, that wouldn't be overridden. That's the actual reason. We were not getting the content. It was always coming as question mark, question mark, question mark. Now that we have set, we go ahead and type the same response request, hit the same request in this command line from the HTTP, right? Here as well, you see, even though browser, we say browser renders, but it's a command line, just a terminal. What do you get here? The same content in non-English characters are automatically displayed. I'm happy with my content. I'm able to get the tweak working. It says the same content in material, right? So let's test all the same thing in Postman as well, other tools. I'm sure it would work, but we can, as a quick revision, we could do that as well. So let's go here. Same thing we had get method. We make it. Here you go. Now how do I make this bigger and better? View, zoom in. Yeah. All right. Here you go. That's right. So we get the content, right? Same way we had a curl and inside a VS Code also we had those utilities. Yeah, here it is REST API we had. This is REST API. We make a send request. Now you see here as well. Everywhere it would be available. No questions at all, right? Whatever the editor, the response you see here as well. Okay, we can take a look here also, right? In the browser also, go to your more tools, developer tools. Let's reload it. Go to the network tab, reload this. See here. Char set. Earlier it was all with ISO 8859. Now this is called handshaking. The client and server do the handshaking wherein they first agree on the protocol. What is the character data, the content of what content I'm supplying, and what is the character set or encoding that you should be. The server advises the client to handle the data in the right manner. It advises. That's the protocol. You see char set is equal to UTF-8 text/HTML, whatever we supplied. This we have seen in the last session as well. If you don't explicitly set that, let's say for example, here you didn't explicitly set this, then by default it will be plain text, right? We have seen in the last class as well. It will be black color text, no HTML, right? That's what we could see. So everywhere you see the response parameter as well, headers, right? The parameter headers, what we pass, raw preview. Here it is very prevalent, right? You see that char set UTF-8. Even here also you see char set UTF-8. But earlier you see this was char set ISO 8859. That's why the content was not properly rendered. In technical term, when you say render, means the way in which it is displayed. The ability or the style in which the content is displayed or prepared, the way in which it is presented, that's called it's rendered. So now it is rendered appropriately because the response, the headers, right? is coming with the right character set, because that is insisted via API on the servlet response object. So that's why now we are able to see everywhere we get this, right? I have done the settings only on HTTP GET. HTTP POST I have not done. I would leave that as a homework. The people, whoever readers who are going through, kindly apply the same thing and try to take it as a homework, make it as a applicable setting. Try to redo the same thing for POST as well, so that any uh, uh, exercise or any data that we carry out from either using GET or POST, the settings should be appropriate. You can do that. Also, I can give another tip. You could do that as a reusable method. So the do GET, do POST, both of them can have the same setting. You don't need to reuse. You don't need to repeat the same thing, right? You could try that as well. So with that said, we'll close this video. Thanks everyone for watching. We will carry on with the next video on the JDBC programming. This is what our content was. Before we could actually start the POC, we want to do all these as a precursory baby steps. So we'll start with the next video as the JDBC program as a standalone program. And then we need to extend the same thing, how the UTF-8 contents are available in the database as well. Via JDBC, how do we deal with the UTF-8 contents? That's a precursory. Only then we can actually start with the application development. Thanks for watching. Have a good day. Thanks. Bye.